What is the date? Today's about the...
Today's the 28th.
29th.
No, 29th.
Yeah, 29th, and we're just going to do some of our family history. So, Dad, we're going to start with you, where you were born, the dates, and your parents, grandparents, and whoever else that you remember.
Good.
So speak up.
I was born in Utica, New York, on 3rd Ave, on January 15, 1918. My mother was Sophie Zacharitza Marano. My father was Alfonso Marano. And
What was Grandma's birthday?
Grandma's birthday was June 13, 1890.
And where was she born?
She was born near Krakow, Poland. They had a farm. And she had a sister, Maggie, and a brother, John was the youngest. There was John, there was Edward, Peggy, and I think that was the sum total of them. And I don't know the mother's name, but the father's name was Carlo Lila Marano.
Did he come here?
Oh, yes.
He came after her?
How it came about was that Aunt Maggie came first, and after she made enough money, she brought her father over and her mother. And then later on, she brought over my mother, Sophie, her brother John, and her brother Edward.
And what year did Grandma come here?
She was 6 years old.
So that's 1896.
So that would be 1897. She landed somewhere in the New England states. And
New Bedford?
no,
Boston?
I have no idea.
One of those two.
I don't know which was the main area. I believe that's what it was, because she was in they had woolen mills, but I can't think.
That's all over New England?
Yeah, they were all over there. And what happened between age 6 and age 10, I don't know. But in order to get into the country, Aunt Maggie had to show proof she had a sufficient amount of money to support these people. And I don't know, I'm vague on how the family dispersed. All I know is that Aunt Maggie was in Utica. My mother was age 10, working on the loom in the woolen mill. Her right hand was caught in the gears, and when they disengaged the gears and got her hand out of there, when they took her to the doctor was going to remove her hand. And Aunt Maggie came up from Utica, New York, and took her from where she was situated down to Utica. And my mother insisted for them they cannot take the hand off. So the doctor, working on her hand, and he slipped wires underneath her fingers and raised the flesh and the skin up and everything. But he said he wouldn't guarantee anything that would happen. The hand did heal. She never had too much strength in it, but she had enough strength to work. The gainful employment in the the cotton mills in Utica, cotton mills and the woolen mills in Utica. So she lived with my Aunt Maggie. She married at age 16. And from there, I have very little history of what transpired, but she had 2 siblings with her first husband, and she had 8 with Alfonso Marano.
So what was her first husband's name?
I have no idea.
Basiglio.
Yeah, it's Mr. Basiglio, right?
Well, that's,
And then which of your siblings were?
that was Anthony and Mary.
Okay, so Tony and Mary.
Uh,
And then what happened to him?
We don't know.
What's the story behind
All
it?
we know is that 2 men came to the house and just told my mother that he would not be coming back and not to ask any questions.
How old was she at the time?
Well, she had Tony and she married at 16. Tony was born in when she was 17, and I don't have the birth dates available, so I can't really tell you.
So when this happened, she probably would have been about 19 or 20.
Give or take.
And then how old was she when she married your father?
Well, Louis was the next one. So Louis was January 23. And
How much older was Louis than you?
I don't know. But he'd have to have been about 19, 12.
Okay, so she would have been about 22
Okay.
at that point. And where was your father from?
He was from Alquete, Sant Antonio. That was in the so-called county of Avellino, Avellino, and that was in the province of Naples. And my understanding was that he and a bunch of his buddies had gone to another town to a dance, and they had a squabble over who was dancing with whom and everything else. And he had one of those guys, he didn't know what happened, and he just took off for Marseille, France, and he came over to this country, and I think he came into Ellis Island, I don't know.
New York.
And my mother told me when he had one other brother that was in the United States. She told Florence that he had 2 brothers.
No.
And but then she had her children one right after another. And then
So just tell me all of your brothers and sisters in order from Uncle Tony on down.
all right, then there was Tony, and I'd have to believe that
You know,
it must have been about 1907 or 1906,
right.
and Mary would have been about 1907.
Yeah, 1908. And then Louis.
Louis would have to be about 1912. Rose was born in 1913. Frank was born in December of 14. John was born January 23, 1916. And I was born in 1918. George was born in June of 19. Ernie was born January 26, 1921, and Florence was born September
25th.
of 1922.
Okay.
And my father passed away in May of 22. Florence was born in September of 22. She never saw her father, never knew her father.
Okay, go ahead.
My grandmother, on my mother's side, passed away in Utica, New York.
What was her name?
And
No.
I don't even know if I remember her or not. And then my grandfather, on my mother's side, passed away when I must have been about 16 or something like that.
Speak up a little.
And Edward had married a German-born woman. He was managing one of the Mohican market stores and had a heart attack and passed away.
Who was he now? Your mother's?
My mother's brother.
Oh.
And my mother's brother John lived in Utica, and he was incapacitated. He had been in Pennsylvania for a few years and developed the black lung disease from the coal miners. And I don't know just when he passed away. And his wife became very arthritic, and whatever year she passed away, I would have to garner this information from Florence because she was friendly with the family on that side.
So
And
it's possible we have relatives down that way? Cybernetians?
I don't know whether we would or not.
In Pennsylvania, right?
Supposedly, but see, he was only in Pennsylvania. That any relatives, if they did die, I don't know if they ever were here or what. They owned a farm in Poland.
Right.
And we never talked about her relatives or anything like that.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
All right.
But you had several cousins in Utica, besides the Nation.
Yeah, but those
Family.
they were the siblings of
Yeah,
John.
Right.
See, that's why I can't say whether there was any from my mother's age group. That I don't know.
All right, Mom, we'll start with you when you were born, and then we'll try to go back to all the names and all
I
that.
was born in Utica, New York, June 3rd, 1925. And I was born to Rose Mody and Anthony Mody. My dad and my mother were both born in Bakarsala, Lebanon. My mom came to the United States when she was 6. My dad was sent over here by his mother at the age of 13 alone with a friend of the family, Mary Lewis. And he came on the boat, and then when he reached the United States, he went to live with his brother and sister-in-law in Utica, New York.
What year did he come here?
What year?
What year did he come here?
I don't know.
Well,
He
what
was
year was
13.
he born?
Okay, so
Was he
Grandpa
13?
was born 1900. And so
Well, that was 1913.
yeah, and which
And
is 19,
13.
yeah, okay. And my mother was 6, and so she would have come. My mother was born in 1906, yeah, and she was 6, so she would have come 1912, right?
So
Yeah.
she actually preceded him.
Yeah, well, they didn't know
Coming.
each other
Right.
in the old country. They didn't meet till they worked in the Utica knitting mills in Utica, New York. They met at a very young age. I think maybe she might have been 16 or 17. They met. She was 18 when they married, I had 3 children. Myself, I'm the eldest. I have a sister, Jeanette Newman, brother, Ermin Mody. Uh, we lived in Utica.
Well, you had a sister Amy also.
And a sister, Amy, who passed away at 9 months.
I want to back up for just a second. What was Grandpa's birthday?
Grandpa Mody?
Yeah.
May 15th.
And so he was born May 15th, 1900.
1900.
And then Grandma's birthday was January 25th.
January 24th.
4th.
Yeah, 1906.
Okay, and who were Grandma's parents?
My grandmother's parents were Ruth Malin and Salim Malin. And I remember my grandfather's grandfather was my great-grandfather, and his name was Anthony Malin, who we loved very dearly, and he lived with my grandparents until he passed away.
When did he die?
He must have died probably 1940, 45, 46. I can't remember what year he died, but he was in his 80s when he passed away, and we loved him very dearly. And then my dad's mother, as I understand it, my dad's father died at a very young age in Lebanon. I don't even know his name, nothing about him. His mom's name was Rafa, and how you spell it, I don't know.
Say it again real loud.
Rafa.
All right.
Very similar to that anyway. And that she would never come to this country. As many times as he wanted her to come here, she wouldn't come here. And he never saw her after the age of 13. He used to support her, used to send her money, kept in touch with her through a friend that could write letters to her, and so that he could send her money. And we had a relative, Joe Curry, who used to take care of her and look out for her. And I couldn't tell you at what age. I know she lived a good many years, what age she died. I don't remember my dad ever mentioning. I remember when she passed away, but I can't remember when it was.
Yeah.
And what else do I know? Okay, my grandparents had my mother Rose, my Aunt Mary, who was the eldest, Mary Lewis, Aunt Dolly Murhead, and Helen Viviano, and Uncle Eddie. And they all came to Sherburne, and I can't tell you what year, and they all at one time worked in the factory.
Were they born here, or they were born?
No, they were. Aunt Mary was born in Lebanon.
Right.
The rest were all born here.
Okay.
So the other children were all born here in Utica. And I can't begin to tell. I must have been about 4 or 5 when we left Utica and moved to Sherburne, where our parents worked in the factory. And they worked there until, what year did they open? I can't think what year they opened a restaurant. They opened a restaurant, and my mother ran it. My dad continued to work in the factory. Probably about 1940, they opened a restaurant, and
Mody's Restaurant.
Mody's Restaurant, and that was on North Main Street in
Could
Sherburne.
not have been 1940.
You don't think so?
We married in 47.
Yeah, okay. But they had it several. Oh, okay. I was wrong. That's right. They didn't open it until we had just gotten married. We had right after we were married. So it must have been 47. The latter part of 47 or early 48. And they worked there. They had a fire. Was in 1962, and then my mother just worked for different people after the fire. She worked for my cousin Ozzie in his restaurant, and Abbott's in their restaurant, and my dad had retired by then, and he just stayed home.
How did Grandma get the money to start the restaurant? Do you know?
I have no idea how they did
Uncle
it, and
George
they knew
maybe?
absolutely nothing about the business. I can remember that I came from Bath to help them for some reason or other, and somebody ordered a Hamburg steak, and Grandma didn't even know what it was. They had a lady that cooked, a Mrs. Cunningham, and she knew what to do, and then she taught Grandma a lot about the restaurant. I have no idea how they got the money. I can't believe they borrowed it. They started on
They just saved money.
just probably saved money and just decided, and why they ever decided to go into the restaurant business, I'll never know. But they worked many, many years. So my brother worked with them for many years. And then after the fire, my brother went into the Christmas tree business, and from there into the real estate business. I went into hairdressing. Jeanette went into hairdressing. That was all prior to the restaurant work, of course. But
So that's all around the late 40s.
yeah, you mean as far as the restaurant was concerned? Yeah.
So they started that around the late 40s, worked till 1962.
Yeah.
It
And
would
then
have been
then they
about
went to
15
Florida.
years,
Yeah, and then they
basically. What did Grandpa do in the mill?
he was a what's they spinner. Yeah. And my mother was a winder. And my dad worked on the third floor. My mother worked on the second floor. My
So
dad,
how did they meet? They met at the mill?
they met in Utica,
Uh-huh.
and that's where they met, and that's where they were married. And then, and I have to believe they did the same thing in the Utica mill that they did in the sugar mill.
And what was their anniversary date?
June 24th. And they were married 1926, the year before I was, 1924, I should say.
Yeah.
The year before I was born.
Okay, so you were the oldest, and then who?
Then Jeanette was next. She's 14 months younger. Her birthday's in October 2nd. And then Uncle Ermin was, Amy must have been next. And then there was 5 years difference, I think, between Ermin and myself. So he must have been born 1930.
Yeah.
And Amy, I can't remember. Amy, I remember the month. She was born May, also May 15th on my dad's birthday, but I don't remember what year she was born.
What did she die from?
She, supposedly, my mother always told me she fell out of her high chair and got spinal meningitis, and she went blind. And, of course, at that time, they didn't have the medication and stuff that they do now, or even to take her to the hospital as far as that was concerned. So that's the story that my mother told me. So.
What other stories have you heard?
Well, the other story is that Aunt Dolly told NJ that she fell down the steps in a stroller and hit her head. But
it's one of those two things. So she suffered a head injury.
Anyway, she had a head injury.
So, Dad, tell me just, do you have any recollections of your father?
Oh, yeah.
Like what?
I remember he had a mustache. He also was in the Brasilieri, which is the cream of the crop of the military service in Italy.
Uh-huh.
He had to serve his term there.
Right.
And I remember one time that he was in the rocking chair. They had their white arms on him, and I was sitting on that. We had this instance when it was one of the holidays. Which holiday it was, I don't know. And the family was all around the table. And my grandfather had been out, and he had been drinking, and when he returned, he started to argue with my mother, and then he also started with my father. And my father was a very patient man, and he had one of these small concertina accordion. So my father and my grandfather, Jade, and destroyed it. And my father didn't do anything. So then Jade started with my mother, and that's when my father stood up. He was standing up, he took the whole platter of spaghetti, because at the holiday you always had spaghetti plus meat. And threw it at Jade, and I can still see the spaghetti falling down, and there's the sauce coming down, and then blood was coming because it split his head, his forehead. And I don't know who it was. Somebody, because next minute I knew there were two policemen coming into the kitchen, and they tried to calm him down. There was no calming him down, and so just before the police had come in, he had gone under the sink, and my mother had like a soft drink bottle of kerosene that she used to light the wood fire. You pour some kerosene in there, and then that way you can get the wood started and get the heat coming. So he looked at my mother and he says, he says, you tried to hide this from me. And she tried to tell him it was kerosene. He drank it.
Your grandfather?
He drank it. And then that's when the police came.
He didn't get sick from that?
And so he demanded a cigarette from the police. So one of them had cigarettes, so they gave him one. And he lit it, and he swallowed it. And I kept waiting for him to blow up, because I figured kerosene would blow you right up.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's as much as I know about that incident.
Jannah